Well, hi everybody. It's really good to see you, and welcome back to our latest In Conversation With. Sorry, we're late. We had to go to a funeral yesterday in Mansfield, so we're now doing this on Thursday morning. The week is kind of getting away from us, Jenny, isn't it?
It really is. And apologies, everyone. I'm also still drinking coffee because it's
Yeah, me
first thing in the
too.
morning
Me
after a
too.
very long day.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're here. We're here, which is great, and we are talking about All Saints Day. Because, well, it's interesting, of course, today is Halloween. We're recording this, which is All Hallows Eve, which is All Saints Eve. There we go.
Mhm.
So there's a whole lot of different theories about how this has come to be.
Christian festival.
Christian festival. Yeah. Okay. Well,
Mhm.
that's all good. And yeah, so we're going to talk a bit about that. And then there is a reading that's been put with it. And we're going to try and see if we can work out why the lectionary compilers have given us this reading, aren't we?
Yes, I always find it really difficult. I can talk about All Saints' Day and I can talk about the reading, but I always struggle to kind of marry them up together, really. So but let's
So
look at All Saints' Day
I
first.
thought we would go to obviously second to the Bible, that other great authority in the world,
It's
Wikipedia.
not, I was
So
going to say it's not Wikipedia, is it?
Wikipedia, here we go. Here's Wikipedia, All Saints Day. All Saints Day, also known as All Hallows Day, Feast of All Saints, is a Christian solemnity celebrated in honor of all the saints of the church, whether they are known or unknown. And if, like me, you've probably already got the hymn in your head, For All the
The
Saints, that we'll be
Saints.
singing on Sunday. Okay, and basically, yeah, so obviously lots of early Christians were martyred. And so, of course, well, and of course, Christians today still dying for their faith.
Mhm.
Can't remember who famously said that the church was sort of founded on the blood of the martyrs. So the martyrs, those who died in faith, was a sort of big issue. So there's a big issue. And so they wanted to have, early Christians had developed a festival to honor those who'd been martyred, which is sort of developed into All Saints Day. And it's celebrated on the 1st of November, according to Wikipedia. So it must be true because,
And if you just scroll down, you can see liturgical celebrations
yeah,
begin with Vespers on the 31st of
there we
October,
are.
All
All
Hallows
Hallows
Eve.
Eve. There we go. So it is. And of course, it's a sort of it's a sort of 3-day festival, isn't it? Because All Hallows
Mm.
Eve, All Hallows Day, All Saints Day, and then the 2nd of
All
November, All
Souls Day.
Souls Day. Because but in fact it would be fair to say that so there we go. It's held on the 1st of November. This is the bit really, I suppose, because Pope Gregory the Fourth. Oh no, sorry, where is it? They basically had a chapel called All Saints Chapel that was commissioned or whatever on the 1st of November. I think it
Oh
says
yeah,
that.
it's there. It's there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There we are. So that's why it was. So first they used to happen after Pentecost, but then got moved to November later on. Okay, so that's enough Wikipedia, really, isn't it? So,
Okay. More than
and yeah,
enough.
we got All Souls Day, which of course is a bit. I don't think All Souls Day is celebrated so much in the Protestant tradition. I mean, there's a whole kind of stuff in here, isn't there?
Nah, I think it is. I think we're just not Catholic enough. We're not far on the Catholic enough end of the spectrum of Anglican worship.
Indeed, indeed.
I think it very much is.
It is in
Um,
more Anglo-Catholic churches.
mm.
That is absolutely true. Because you're into a bit of a debate about who's a saint, aren't you? So
I do tend to mix them together, All Souls and All
that's
Saints.
because you're a
Yeah,
big Protestant, really.
mm.
So you like
I,
to.
I am. I'm even
That's
dressed
interesting,
as
isn't
a
it?
good
Because
Protestant today.
what that's all about really is that it speaks to the whole thing of who's a saint, and obviously if you're a Roman Catholic, then the saints are people who have been decided to be saints by the Pope and whoever it is decides
Mhm.
these things. I don't know all about that really, other than they do that. There's a process you have to go through in order to be beatified, and they would be the saints. When there was a more Protestant view, would be that everyone who is a Christian and follower of Jesus is a saint. And we can argue
Mhm.
that it's necessarily particularly probably going to produce more heat than light, don't you think?
And generally, I try to mix that up. I tell stories of the famous saints, and then I try and tell a story of someone who has died who I know to be more an inspirational Christian. So I've got.
Of which is interesting for us, isn't it? Because we went to a funeral yesterday. A great friend, Graham Clark, in
Yes.
near Mansfield, and I think we would want to say he was a saint. He was a very inspirational man. He was a
Yeah, and I think probably that will get tied into my sermon this week,
yeah
because yeah, so I have a few people that have really kind of just made a big impact on my Christian faith, and Graham was one of them. So yeah.
yeah absolutely absolutely. So we would want to say that we don't hold that distinction firmly, but that we recognise that there are people who have been exemplary in their Christian faith, and there are those, of course, who have suffered and died and been martyred for it. Not that I know any of those, but clearly through history they have.
No.
Yeah. So we can also hold these two things together, I think, can't we? So interestingly, what we're into here is all sorts of different questions about our things about what happens when we die, and sort of questions around that, aren't there? That sort of connection. The whole universal church is made of those that live,
Well, I always think the questions of what happens when you die is quite a tricky one to navigate,
it
because
is.
as you know, I have done a fair amount of funerals, and I would say that it's very cultural for us to believe that people go straight from death to heaven. So cultural that it flows through the Christian church, even though our liturgy will say that we're going to rest in peace and rise in glory, which suggests there's a bit of a gap between those two things.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
There is, of course, a whole story here around. Oh, I don't want to sound like I'm any kind of expert on this, but I know there's a story here about the fusion of biblical thought with Greek thought, and the idea that we are our bodies, in a sense, are vessels for our souls, and that when we die, that's it for our bodies, and our souls go to heaven. That's a much more Greek idea than it is Hebrew.
Yeah.
That's biblical idea.
Is it not Plato?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
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 Absolutely. So they've become a bit fused in our imagination, haven't they? Whereas the Christian idea is actually, as you say, that we will rest in peace and rise in glory at the resurrection at the last day.
Yes. And I always find it quite interesting that, as I say, Christians don't grasp that either, even though we say it a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Because
therefore,
it's so ingrained into our cultural thought.
What happens to and of course, in a way, of course, our bodies do decompose, and there will be that. It's interesting, of course, the atoms in our bodies and the molecules that make our bodies will not. We'll just, but as you know, we will. You know, there's a which is fascinating because they're always turning over anyway. So I just find that all that kind of thing really interesting. But we sort of, I kind of hold that together by thinking, well, yes, okay, but God can. It's not just about reconstituting atoms and molecules, but it's about God will hold us and then will give us a new body. That's kind of how I see it.
I'm very much into the new body.
Yeah.
I've put my order in.
I'd like to have
I don't need to be shaving my legs for all eternity.
I want a body where I can eat and eat and eat whatever I want all the time and not get fat.
No grey hair. Size 10, I feel quite nice.
Okay. So obviously we're being a little bit, well, that's our way, isn't it? Yeah, and it may well be if anyone does listen to this, I'm not sure, but you know, I know some people listen to us. Yeah, that's not fair. But yeah, I think it's really interesting, and actually, maybe that's where we come to our reading today, because there is a reading set for All Saints' Day, which
there is
both in St Margaret's and in Holy Trinity, isn't there? And we're kind of trying to work out what it says and how we link it into All Saints' Day, aren't we? So I'm going to do another screen share. And I think it's interesting that I don't really understand why they've done this, but the lectionary compilers don't start this passage in John 11 until verse 32. There's actually
okay. So should we just give a little bit of background?
Yeah, a little bit of background. You going to do that, am I?
Yeah, well, basically, Jesus was on his way and he was called that his friend Lazarus is dying or dead. And Lazarus was a very good friend of Jesus. He was friends with Lazarus and his sisters Mary and Martha. And he made no effort to get there, did he?
No, basically he gets the message saying he's ill, and he gets to watch that. Not go.
But yeah, it doesn't go at all. And where do we pick the story up then?
Well,
Is
actually,
it
we pick it
32?
up. So starts at the beginning of chapter 11, as you
Mm.
say, yeah, and then you have this amazing conversation between Martha, who comes out and speaks to Jesus and brings this phrase, which of course will resonate for both of us from having done a lot of funerals. I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live, and everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? Now, interestingly, we haven't got that either in this, but I think it's a really important
No.
context. We're actually picking it up at verse 32. When Mary came where Jesus was and saw him,
Oh.
knelt at his feet and said to him, Lord, if you'd been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. He said, where have you laid him? They said to him, Lord, come and see. Jesus began to weep. So the Jews said, see how he loved him. But some of them said, could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying? Then Jesus, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and the stone was lying against it. Jesus said, take away the stone. Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, Lord, already there is a stench because he has been dead 4 days. Jesus said to her, did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? So they took away the stone. And Jesus looked upward and said, Father, I thank you for having heard me. I know that you always hear me, but I have said this for the sake of the crowd here, so that they may believe that you sent me. When he had said this, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in a cloth. Jesus said to them, unbind him and let him go.
So I think we should start with the most important question of this passage.
Which is what?
Did he stink?
I know. I love that bit as well.
Did he stink? I need to know. Was he stinky?
Why? I don't. I think you're being. I don't even think you're being slightly flippant when you think this is the most important. Why is that an important question?
Because we have had discussions before of whether he was brought to life, back to life, or whether he was resurrected. And if he was resurrected, new body wouldn't stink.
No, he hasn't got a new body. No, he has been brought. No,
But
but
yeah, so it's brought back to life. But
because
if
he's
you're
not here
saying
now.
like, so why did you think he didn't stink?
Well, I think it's important to say that this. Why I'm saying that is, what was he got a new body? Why am I saying that? Because there are two different things in our thinking, aren't there? It is a type of resurrection. It is a resurrection, but it's not the same as Jesus's resurrection. Jesus's resurrection is of a different type, we might say.
No, okay, yeah, absolutely.
Because Jesus' resurrection is forever, in that he is
And it won't be the
gone
same as our
through into the age to
resurrection
come.
on the last day.
That is the same as we believe will happen to us on the last day.
Yeah.
Jesus' resurrection is a type of what will happen. That's what Paul says, isn't it?
And therefore he
First
stinks.
fruits of those who have fallen asleep. Whereas Lazarus, okay, well, his clothes might stink because they're being wrapped in him for 4 days, aren't they?
But you don't think he stinks?
I don't know why that matters, really.
I'm just fascinated as whether he did or didn't.
I like this. I love the bit. I love the bit that where they translate. Is it? I've got it again in front of me here. Is it Mary or Martha who says it? Sorry, I can't quite see. But basically, I think it's. Where are we? So Martha, whoever the practical one, yes, it should. You'd have known it would be Martha, wouldn't you? The practical one of that too, relating to a different story of Mary and Martha there. But Lord, already there is a stench. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I love the way they're going to track. Lord, there's a stench. It's like, I think it's going to be much more. It's a much more visceral kind of, and I think that's why I think your question is not unimportant. It's going to stink. It's going to stink, and there's going to be a lot of wailing going on, and all sorts of stuff. It's a real kind
The
of.
other thing, okay, so the other thing that strikes me, and I don't think we talk about it enough, is just what a terrifying experience this must be for Lazarus.
Yes.
I mean, 1 minute you're dying, going, look after each other, don't forget to feed the dog, or whatever you say on your deathbed. And the next, you can hear a voice, but you can't move because you're tightly bound. You're stuck in a cave. I mean, he must have kind of look the way the tombs were as well. It's like slotting them in. So like can't just stand up. it's not quite tall enough, and he's kind of, it must have been absolutely terrifying. It
So I guess all those are great details. I love them, and we could, I think, I think, but I guess what is, I mean, he comes out, sort of, you can imagine him sort of shuffling out, can't you? Because he's all tied up in his grave clothes. And then Jesus says, unbind him and let him go. I mean, I think what it's about, what's the link? Well, the link is that Jesus has power over death.
yeah, and I think there's a lot we can take from Mary and Martha's reaction as well. We all recognize those reactions when it comes to grief. Recognize those reactions when we've been praying and it doesn't happen, and like, where were you? I think
Yeah, absolutely.
it's a story that we can relate to on many, many levels.
Yes, yes. And
Just
Jesus,
not entirely sure how to use it for All Saints, All Souls Day, though.
well, I think that's what I'm saying. Just from this
Mm.
conversation, I'd need to develop this thought myself, because I'm using this at 8:30 on Sunday. Colleague Cecilia is doing all age with it. I don't know what she's going to do with it, but 11 o'clock with All Saints. But I think it's about, for me, I think it's about, this is demonstrating Jesus's power over death, which is echoed in that I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live, etc., etc. So this is why I think in a way it's a bit of a shame they haven't. I don't know why they didn't include that bit in it. It doesn't make it that much longer.
Yeah.
And I guess we could include that if we wanted to. But yeah, so therefore, yes, All Saints has come from this thing about those who've died in faith, because, in one sense, dying for your faith seems like a crazy idea, because if, as Paul says, if this is all we have, then, we are more to be pitied, because we've given up our life. People have given up their lives for what? Although people give up their lives for all sorts of things, of course, but giving up their lives for what? So yeah, I think it's about saying it's worth it.
So yeah, the power over. And that we can all be saints. We're going to have to go for that good Protestant line that Lazarus, because Lazarus was just a normal person, really, wasn't he? That's the thing.
Yeah. He doesn't actually.
He hasn't done anything amazingly holy. He
No,
was
that's true.
lucky lucky enough to be friends with Jesus, which is, but so are we. A friend of Jesus.
Yeah, I think.
But he hasn't. We hear the saints doing kind of weird and wonderful things. Some of them, don't they?
Well, of course, they have a whole. Well, the word is hagiography grew up around them. All the amazing things supposed to. Yeah, you're right. Lazarus hasn't got any of that.
No.
He doesn't really feature in the story very much, other than this. This is his big moment, really, in the story. Very much done to him because he is dead. He doesn't get any say over it. He's
No.
out again, like so or not. I mean, I think there's some lovely touches in it as well, aren't there? The way, I mean, obviously, I mean, and of course, he gets a mention in the prayers of common worship funeral service, who wept at he's weeping at the grave of Lazarus's friend. And, it's real. You've got to, it's real. Jesus, they can see that it's real. He is deeply grieving for his friend, and yet he has the power to bring it back, and does. So it's just really.
And that's why it's a shame we haven't got the whole story, really. Although I might not be a slave to the lectionary. I might
No, well,
be.
I might not either. But anyway,
Mm.
yeah, I think I might not either. So I think that's what I would want to will develop between now and Sunday morning in terms of this passage. There's a lot there, as ever. And actually, it's been really good to talk about it, because now I've got some ideas, which is good.
It's good to focus the mind ready before we start. Right, try and write.
And yeah, of course, it's a hugely encouraging reading, because that's what we believe, that, and of course, that the other part about All Saints, of course, is this idea of the one church, that we are not separated from those who have died. In one sense we are, but in another sense we're part of the church. The church, both those who have gone before us and those who are alive now, or as the prayer book says, The church militant here in earth.
It does.
Great
I like
phrase.
that.
I like that.
Militant.
So we are still, I like that. That's good, isn't it? We are part of the church, militant here in earth. So we need a bit more militancy. But we all for those who have gone before and who we trust to God what's going on, don't we? I don't get too worried about that because, you know, is it like falling asleep and you're gonna wake up a bit like Lazarus, really? You know, do you wake up on the last day and go, hey, we're here?
I think for me, it's the moment that I just remember just how many people are going to be resurrected. When you just think back of all the Christians over the years, and
Yeah.
it's always the moment when I think of the amount of people that have worshipped and prayed in whichever church I'm in, and it's
Yes.
just a huge number
Yes.
at that
And,
resurrection day.
you know, but
Mm.
yeah, and it's going to be exciting.
Yes, it is.
It is going to be exciting, isn't it, Jenny? Yeah. I find
And
it a
they're
little
not just going to sing
reminder
hymns all the
around it.
time. They are going to do nice, exciting
Okay.
things.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to have to leave it there. We're a little bit short today because I've got to get off and have a meeting. But thank you. Thank you for being listening. Again, thank you to those of you who've left comments. That's really great when they're encouraging ones, especially. And we will see you on Sunday at St. Margaret's.
And at Holy Trinity.
It's been great to share this time with you. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week.
See you next week. Thank you.